authorities entirely and removing the need for planning permission with fracking is because fracking has little or no support within our communities. Ministers have, I'm afraid, been hypnotised by the success story in the United States without considering the critical difference between the US and the UK, and that is that the US has vast tracts of low-density land which it can exploit. For fracking to be a viable part of our energy mix in the UK, two things are necessary: tracts of land with low population and broad-based community support, but we have neither. The Bowland Shale gas field, by far the most sizeable in the UK, is where the viability of fracking will live or die. It covers land from Lancaster in the north, Sheffield in the south and Whitby in the north-east. One well, just one, has been introduced in this basin in teeth of opposition, and even that has lain dormant for many months due to tremors. And it covers almost all of the major metropolitan centres of the north of England: Liverpool, Manchester, Preston, and on the right side of the Pennines, Derby, Sheffield, York and North Leeds. It is an absurdity that the government think a fracking basin that covers a population running into the many millions is viable. And rather than recognise these inherent flaws caused by trying to impose an industry with a dubious environmental record on a highly populated sweep of land, the government instead are trying to override the local population entirely. If communities cannot exercise their democratic right to oppose fracking through the planning system, then how can this government maintain the presence of localism? There is no broad consent for fracking in the way that there often is for other users of the national infrastructure projects regime.
Will my honourable friend actually acknowledge that it was the elected members on Lancashire County Council who voted not to have fracking at Preston New Road, and it's the government who turned their back on those people, my constituents? So all these nods to localism, actually what the government is saying is localism and local opinion is well and truly buried.
Right. There can be no pretence to localism when the government is riding roughshod over the voices and rights of local authorities and local people, not least because of the documented seismicity risks. Since just October last year, the Preston New Road operation has triggered 3 red-level tremors and 57 earthquakes, not to mention the risk to aquifers. Denying the local community a meaningful say is utterly anti-democratic and perverse. It is not too late for the government to rethink their approach and recognise that the obstacles they are finding in their way should not just be bulldozed through inappropriate legislation, and that at a fundamental level the prospects for an advanced shale gas industry in the UK are completely and utterly flawed.
I'm now introducing a 3-minute time limit in order to make sure we get everybody in. Lee Rowley.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak today. It's a pleasure to follow my near neighbour in Sheffield in this important debate, and it's also a pleasure to see so many people who've been involved in this discussion ever since I joined the place, particularly in my capacity as chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on the impact of shale gas, and I congratulate the Backbench Business Committee on selecting this and the honourable member from Bath for doing so. This is an incredibly important debate. And already we've had fantastic contributions on this side of the House, and in fairness on the other side of the House as well, on this. I think what you are seeing here is that there is an emergence of a cross-party consensus here that we have a problem on fracking in our country. If there was a traffic light system to be applied today to this House, it would be flashing red that there is no majority for permitted development NSIP, or probably even pursuing fracking in general in this country. I say that not because I am an anti-fracker per se. I didn't start in that place. I used to be, my second job just before I left after I left university, was as an oil and gas analyst for 3 years. So I came at this, like others in this debate, from an agnostic perspective. But the problem with fracking is when that you unpick it, and when you unpick the economic prospectus upon which it is based, as my honourable friend from Wells indicated a moment ago, it falls apart. And if I, as a pro-business conservative, as somebody who believes in trying to fix our energy solution, as somebody who believes that we cannot move straight to renewables, however laudable that may be, but if the prospectus upon which we are talking does not work, then at some point you have to practically and pragmatically say we should go no further, we should invest our personal energies and our money and our capital and our effort in something else. And that is why I am convinced that fracking does not have a place in the future energy mix of the United Kingdom, and the government should abandon it. It is wasting time. There are 3 problems with it. One is a people problem. The fracking has now increased in terms of the knowledge that people out there have. As that knowledge has increased, support for fracking has decreased. And the problem now is that there is a perception that the system is being pranged. The system is being pranged because of the NSIP and the PD proposals, which are being suggested by the government at the moment, that you can get this in the same way as building a kitchen extension, and also that the fracking companies have come and asked for changes.
Would my honourable friend give way?
Happily give way.
Would he agree with me that this has got to be more organic, and that if people want this, it should come from the ground up rather than the top down?
I completely agree with my honourable friend. We've absolutely got to give local communities their own say. The community I represent in Marsh Lane has been clear that it does not want this proposal. It should not be forced upon them. It should not be compelled that they take the 14,000 lorry movements over the next 5 years just to explore. It should not be required that the light industrial estate that is going to be plonked in the Greenbelt, largely unchanged for the last 200 years, will be necessary for a village of 800 people. And I'm going to read into the record again, in the time I've got left, the actual bulk that is going to be there for 5 years. 5 years. A perimeter 2-metre high fence, an additional 4.8-metre high combination of bunding and fencing, 2 to 3 cabins of up to 3-metre height, acoustic screenings of up to 5 metres in height, up to 4 security cameras of 5.5 metres in height, a lighting rig of 9 metres height, a 2.9-metre high power generator, 2 water tanks of up to 3-metre heights, a 10-metre high emergency vent, a 4.5-metre high Cooney pressure controller, a 4-metre high blowout preventer, skid and choke manifold, and for 6 months, a 60-metre high rig. That is in the middle of Greenbelt. That is next to a field which was rejected just a few years before for a car boot sale for 14 days of the year, but we can stick a light industrial estate in the field next door. Fracking does not work for this country, practically, economically, or from a land...
Order. Thank Debonair.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's a pleasure to follow the member for North East Derbyshire, clearly arguing for his own community very well. Madam Deputy Speaker, I recently